Joining us as always is Twain. We'll be uncovering the essential mindset shifts that transform your approach to exercise and aging. So let's get ready to rewire our thinking.
Wyatt, yes. Thanks so much, Mike, for that wonderful intro as always. I'm always sitting here just making sure that I don't jump in prematurely, and interrupt your flow.
Yeah,
Just
that's
reorganizing this thing. If I'm not sure if these go up on YouTube as a video, do they?
no.
Oh,
We
okay.
have
Yeah.
special
So
ones that go on video. So
okay.
those
Not yet.
people who are
Not yet.
listening to this and want to see Twain's big muscles, yeah, you can check out our YouTube account.
Yeah. No, because the reason why I asked is just because I was moving things around and just shifting it to make sure the camera's pointing at me.
No, no, don't worry. We'll clip that out for you.
No worries at all. Okay, so what we're talking about today is mindset shifts.
Correct. We usually always focused, or at least in the past, we've spoken at length about
Mm,
workouts, exercise. We've spoken about nutrition, all the different types of components when it comes to nutrition that you should be focusing on and ensuring that you're getting enough of. But the one that we've touched on in all those episodes, but we've never actually given its own episode, is mindset.
yeah, and that's really very very important. In fact, I would argue it's the most important fundamental pillar to this whole process. If you don't get your mindset right, if you don't get the framing of it correct from the start, it's very hard for you to have long-term success. And that's why a lot of people, end up yo-yo dieting or giving up, prematurely and stuff.
So I think
Yeah.
without further ado, let's just jump right in. I think we'll start off with the first question is that what are
Hmm.
the most common mindset blocks that people over 40 face when starting or maintaining a fitness routine?
Oh, there are actually quite a few I can think of. And and again, because we free flow these things, I'm just going to like talk about them from experience and from, training and coaching so many different people over the past, what is it now? 16 years, I think, at this point. Okay, but the very big one and the first one and the one that I think I suffer from, and I think you have expressed that you suffer from too as well, right? Is this idea of it has to be perfect. This all or nothing mindset, right? A lot of us have that.
Mm.
Um, and it is the one thing that honestly kills so many people's progress because it's easy to be perfect for maybe just 1 week, right?
Mm.
Or even 2 weeks. Or sometimes you have like a really nice streak, a month, you're perfect. But the moment something goes wrong, the moment something just goes off plan a little bit and it disrupts that flow and you don't know how to deal with it, what happens for a lot of people is that in the absence of the skill of dealing with disruptions, it becomes immediately nothing. So I think the very big shift that I always encourage clients to have, especially when I observe that this is their mindset and this is what they express has been holding them back from their goals, is you want to shift from all or nothing to all or something.
Mm.
And I feel when you can shift that mindset, you can say, hey, I can't do it perfectly, but I can still do something, a part of it. It just keeps you going. Because if you think about it logically, because most of us would like to think we're very logical, right? If you
Yeah.
think about it logically, 1% is always better than 0% in this case, especially if the goal is to keep moving forward towards the goal. So
Mm. True.
I think that's the big one. That's the biggest mental block I can see that overlaps with a lot of people.
I think I quite appreciate a post that I saw on IG. I can't remember the creator's name, but I'm sure it's probably been regurgitated many, many times across many different accounts, but it's the one that says that you might be trying for 10,000 steps a day, but know that 5,000 steps a day is better than 3,000 steps a day. You
Yeah,
might want to go and work out for 60 minutes, but know that a 20-minute workout is better than no workout. And so on and so on. And he lists and he goes through all the different ones that we have, because we always like, if you work out, science tells you need to have a 45 to 60-minute workout for it to be effective.
yeah,
But oftentimes, and we've shared this during our workout episodes, is that it's not every day that you can go out and just hit a maximum workout. There are days that you're just like, I'm just not feeling it today.
yeah,
And how you approach that also impacts your journey going forward. It's like, do I now just stay home and watch TV, or do I still go to the gym? If your workout is gym related, do I still go to the gym, but just take it easier in the gym on that
Yeah.
day and then come back the next day and hit it hard. So I find it's like that's quite an interesting thing. It's like taking that from the shift from perfection to sometimes perfect. I think is how you put it.
Yeah,
But
it's super important for sure.
yeah, I also want to follow that question with another one saying it's like what about our perception of aging? You know, how does that impact our fitness mindset? Because we're
When
being
you say
told every
perception of
day, right? We're
aging,
being told you
yeah,
cannot lift 200 kilos in deadlift anymore because you need to look after your back. You're getting older, you know. You can't go run a 10 kilometer at this particular pace. You're getting older.
yeah.
What is your views on this?
Uh, well, I mean, first of all, it's never so one size fits all, right? With these things, I think the guiding principle is this: if you don't use it, you lose it.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, so it applies to aging, and I always find a lot of times when people use aging as an excuse, it really is what it is. They're just using it as an excuse for the most part. No doubt your body will deteriorate with age because age, as we've talked about before in previous episodes, from a physiological point of view, age is just your body's inability to keep up with its breakdown because your cells, they regenerate on a daily basis and they also break down on a daily basis. And this balance, right, when aging catches up, this balance is where it tips more towards the breakdown part of things. So we cannot fight the ravages of aging, but with enough consistent effort and with good care of our body, we can actually delay it by a very, very large margin. I mean, for those people who are not familiar, but if you follow me, and please follow me on Instagram and stuff, so you can, get exposed to all the stuff I put up. But if you follow me, you would have seen I put up pictures of my dad many, many, many times. I think Mike has seen pictures of my dad as well,
Hmm.
right? And at 74, he has the body of somebody that's like 40 something, a bodybuilder at 40 something. So, if you keep pushing and you keep consistent with it, you'll be surprised just how much further you can go. So I think aging is just the worst excuse you can use because if you talk about metabolism, the science has already shown only around 60 does your cell metabolism itself actually start to slow down. Otherwise, up until 60, your cell metabolism is actually pretty much the same. The only difference is that your overall metabolism drops because most people just don't have enough muscle, they're not active enough, and they're not taking care of their body, and they have too much fat on them. So that's the cause. It's not aging itself. And my perspective on this is that it's never too late for you to start, regardless of like how old you are. I have had clients that come in at 55, and by 60, they're leaner, they're meaner, they're stronger, they're better. They feel like they unlock their youth again. They reverse the clock 20 years. In 5 years, they will go back 20 years, the kind of thing. They gain back that extra time. So it really doesn't, age is definitely not an excuse. I've been told, and here's the best part. When I started lifting myself and got into exercise and stuff when I was a kid, right? When I was like 12, 13, people would tell me, oh, it's not safe for you, too young to lift weights. But I didn't listen. I just did it anyway. So when I reached 20, I grew, I gained muscle, I still grew up, I still got tall enough because everybody said, oh, it's going to stunt your growth and shit. No, I still grew tall. I'm like 1.78, which is by Asian standards pretty decent. Right. So when I reach my 20s, people say, oh, you just wait until your 30s, you'll feel all the pains and everything. So so yeah, so I waited. I waited until my 30s. I still kept going. Right now, I'm in my 30s. People are now telling me, "Oh, wait until your 40s. Then you know." I'm like, "Okay, cool, cool. I've heard this. I've been through this before. I've heard this before." Okay, I'm not saying that you have to go into it and smash it every day and like throw caution to the wind and just be reckless. Obviously, you want to do it in a smart, tactical way. But at the end of the day, your body's super resilient. You treat it well. You feed it well. You train it hard. You're going to take good care of it. And it's going to serve you very, very well into the future. So that's my perspective on the age topic with regards to long-term fitness.
When people talk to me about that, I always take it with a lot of skepticism, and the reason why is because in my country, well, in the
Hmm.
country where I grew up in, um, we have
For those who
a
don't know, it's South Africa,
yes, so we have a
not
race,
Malaysia.
an endurance race called the Comrades Marathon, and so this Comrades Marathon is 90 kilometers, 90. And so we had this guy called, if any South Africans are listening, they'll recognize the name straight away. But we had this guy called Wally Hayward, and he was quite an exceptional runner. At his first time, if I recall, when he first ran this marathon, he won it on his first attempt. And then subsequently, for many, many years, he quite dominated this particular kind of race.
Mm.
And he ran it for the last time in 1988, I think it was, or 1989, somewhere around there, because
Yeah.
I was still in primary school. And he finished the race. And this was at the age of 80 years old. At 80 years old, he ran 90 kilometers. Now, I don't know if any of the listeners here have run a marathon, because I've run a half marathon. And I can tell you, that's far. Yeah.
No, 90 kilometers is like more than two marathons in a row. It's
Yeah,
ultra it like that's in ultra running already.
correct.
Kind of length of skill.
So
And
I've run a half marathon, and it took probably about a week. And this was when I was in my teens. I ran. It took about a week to recover from this half marathon. But fair enough, I didn't train for it or anything. I just woke
yeah.
up on the Monday and I said to my friend, "Let's run this race." And he's like, "Okay, let's go." And off we went.
The what do you call that? The benefits of youth, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And so when we ran this, but I always come back to this thought is like, if you are, as you're putting it as well, if you're training your body and you're doing it consistently over the years,
Yeah,
going forward, going forward, but you're doing it in a sensible way, right? You're not just going out there and if your one rep maximum, let's say in the squat is 200 kilograms, you're not going out there and putting 280 on the bar and
yeah,
trying to do reps kind of thing. You know, you're
yeah,
doing it in a sensible manner.
yeah,
I can only see that that will improve yourself going forward, right? Your body
yeah.
will respond well to that, and you'll be able to continue doing that into well into your years. And
Yeah, I mean, look at some of the senior or master powerlifter people.
mm,
Some of the records you can see nowadays, especially with social media and more people posting, right, and being able to share stuff. You can see like the younger seniors at 50-ish, I forgot the guy's name really, but he was doing I think 300 kilo deadlifts. Right, at 57 years old, I think it was 300 kilo or 280 kilo deadlift, somewhere around that range, which is just ridiculous. That's more than I can do at this moment, you know. And then you have that other, I think there was a 74-year-old woman who in Taiwan who recently did, no, not 74, 90-year-old
yeah, I
woman
saw that one.
in Taiwan. Did you see that one?
Yeah,
And she did what, I think it was 100 kilo or 90 kilos or something.
90 kilos.
Right, 90 years old.
Mm.
90 years old, when most people would think like, oh no, it's too heavy, you can't lift it, whatever.
Yeah, my laundry basket is too heavy to lift up.
Yeah, it's like, look, like that's really a mindset issue. It's a belief issue that needs to change. And the more
Mm.
and the more you can tell yourself, hey, you know what? This is possible. But of course, you have to recognize your current reality and say, that means that, I can work up from here, from where I'm at. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go and do that. You have to go and lift as heavy as some of these people are lifting, obviously. But that's just the way the sky's the limit kind of feeling, right? And there's just so many levels in between that, and just even going up one, two, three, four levels from there is really going to be, uh, such a big improvement to your quality of life. I'm very, very, very sure.
Mm. Right.
Yeah,
So I have one more question before we move into maybe a section on building long-term habits. But before
yeah,
we jump into there, I also want to ask a question because you were saying here is like recognizing that there's something and these possibilities are available. It's not like age is an excuse and all that anymore.
yeah.
But how then can we cultivate that positive self-image that's related to our bodies and fitness levels in our current states?
How can we call it? If you're talking about it from the mindset perspective, I
Mm.
would say that a big shift we can do is to think about it from the perspective of identity, building identity. A lot of people focus only on the outcome, right? Like we focus on I do this thing because I want this benefit, or I do this thing because I want the other benefit. And that's not entirely wrong to think of it that way, for sure. But when you think of it, I do this thing because I want this thing, it's kind of very motivation based and it's not intrinsic. It doesn't pull the motivation intrinsically. It's very extrinsic. And extrinsic motivation is kind of like somebody behind you pushing you forward. right? And so it feels like, oh, at some point that person's going to get tired. It's going to run out, So what happens when things get really, really tough? The extrinsic motivation is not going to be able to carry you forward. So you need something that's intrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is the thing that pulls you towards the outcome that you want. And that's you pulling yourself towards the outcome. And in order to do that, I think the mindset shift needs to go from outcome focus, I want this benefit, to identity focus. I am the person here that has this benefit because of the things that I do. So I become this person. I'm becoming the person that will do my meal prep. I'm becoming the person that actually watches what they eat. I'm becoming the person that will try to find protein in every meal. Most of my clients that are very successful in the long term, okay, not just making the transformation, but they consistently keep up the habits. They are the ones that tell me things like, "Hey, you know what? Just 6 months ago, I can't believe that, I would be saying this, but I'm actually now the person that finds protein in every meal." Even my husband also says that, what a big change, kind of thing. And these are the things that you want to really focus on, because the only way to make things stick is to make this identity change, because identity is what kind of controls our actions. Ultimately, it's the primary core processing and driver of how we decide what actions we will take, whether subconscious or subconscious. And so if we have something in our identity that we have built up, our actions will always try to align with that. And that's why sometimes people try to do things and they feel a lot of resistance, because it's in conflict with how they view themselves internally. So it feels very fake, it feels very forced. So I think the identity shift needs to happen. But of course, you need to sit down and say, okay, this is the benefit and these outcomes I want. What kind of person do I need to be in order to be that? And then how can I slowly work my way towards that? And from there, you can actually kind of work backwards and say, okay, so what certain habits I might need to start with?
Hmm.
And each person's journey will look different, because everybody's identity, will be built in a different way. You color your own painting differently from other people. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the thing that I observe. I think that really makes a big difference for a lot of people.
Hmm. I think if I would just to add on a little thing,
Yeah.
because I think you've covered pretty much everything and laid it out quite nicely too. But if I would add one little thing, it would be is that I shift my focus from the mirror to the action.
From the
From the mirror to the action. So what does that mean? That means
ah
that, a lot of us place our self-worth about how we look in the mirror.
yes.
When you come and you look, it's like, oh, my midsection, it's just not there. Or maybe the woman is like, oh, my hips, I just can't get rid of this kind of thing. So I cover it up whenever I go anywhere. I just cover it up. And I feel like when you're doing that and then you're comparing yourself to all the IG models, all these
Oh
Photoshopped ones
yeah.
that are on Instagram and all that, your
Yeah.
self-worth from that is also, it's very difficult to build that positive self-image from that. But when you
100%.
shift that from the mirror to the action, and it's like you were stating here, is like you have all the clients that are talking about, wow, now I can recognize protein in meals. I have this
Mm,
habit. I can actually do my meal prep. All these positive actions that they're putting in, these habits that they're placing in their life, that are producing positive outcomes. Like positive outcome might be, okay, for sure, maybe I lost the weight, or two, maybe my blood work looks better now. Three,
yeah.
maybe now I'm getting stronger. I can actually go and play with my kids. Four is like, I can carry the shopping for my wife. I don't have to like, oh, it's too heavy. I can now, oh, no problem. Give it to me. And off you go. You get all of these positive outcomes that come from those positive actions, which, you know, are developed by the positive habits. And by
Yeah.
getting all of that, I find like moving that into that identity, becoming a more positive self-image is like another outcome that gets developed from that. And
100%. I agree with you on that.
yeah, so
I
I
think
always find it's like the very first thing for me is shifting that self-image from the mirror to the action.
mm, yeah, I think you put it really, really nicely. I was just gonna say, because I actually literally put up a post yesterday on my Instagram, where I also kind of covered this part briefly, but it was more to do with just sharing my own struggles, right? And one of the things when you talk about self-comparison is like, I do compare myself to other people as well. And it's funny also because obviously I'm doing bodybuilding. Bodybuilding, literally, the whole point of bodybuilding is like to compare yourself with other people in a sense, right? That's what the competition is like. So it's very important to maintain a very objective perspective, to not put your self-worth, self-worth into how you look. You are not your muscles kind of thing. And I think that's the only way to really go about it very healthily. That being said, there's still that human side of you that will always compare, right? And it's very easy to compare and say, hey man, this person's so much further ahead of me. And we never truly, I mean, most of us will not go and compare with somebody that's uh, behind us, right?
Yeah.
Most of us will look to the people that are above us and say, man, this person's so much further ahead of me. And you compare with them and you just notice the gap. You start to feel this like, oh, I feel this diminished self-worth, or this diminished ability even, where you notice this big gap and you say, man, I'm so far behind others, without realizing that, hey, you know what? You're actually so much further ahead of others as well. And I think the way to really approach this or to understand this is the one, not really a mantra, but this is one thing I remind myself of, is that admiration does not need to come at the expense of self-respect. You can always admire the people that are ahead of you and aspire towards that, but
Mm.
it does not negate all the efforts you put in and all that you have accomplished. Because ultimately, we all live in our body. So we only have this one body that we can just take care of and keep pushing ourselves to improve on. And that's the only thing that really matters ultimately, right? Because this is your race. You run this race, you develop your life in the way that you want to. And yeah, and that's the only thing that truly matters. You can look at other people for inspiration and say, oh, maybe this person is very similar. Like if you talk about physicality, maybe this person is very similar to my body type. That's something I can aspire towards, or but beyond that, it doesn't define your value, or it doesn't define who you are. So I think this is a great point that you brought up, which is shifting that self-worth aspect from the mirror over to the actions that you take. Because ultimately we're gonna age, as we talked about earlier. We're gonna age. At some point we will age, right? Even I might build all these muscles up, at some point I'll reach my peak and then it will start to fade. And that's fine because the physical will fade. But if you take away all of that, what else do you have? I think that's the key thing. And I know if I were to lose all my muscles, well, as devastating as it was, if I would lose my physicality, I know that mentally there's certain values, there's certain things that I can do, certain skills that I have that will still make me me, and I can still push forward with that.
Yeah.
So I think that's super important. I'm really glad you brought that up, to be honest.
All right. So knowing all this, then how do we shift from short-term motivation to long-term discipline?
That's honestly a very nuanced topic to be fair. But I will say there are some guiding principles. The first thing is you you want to look at what are your motivations, I would say, like understanding how your goals relate to your motivations, and go deep with them. Meaning, your motivations can't be superficial, surface level stuff. They should be more linked towards who you want to become, and those kind of deeper levels of identity as we talked about. So if you can link that, then you can understand that, oh, I'm doing this, I'm getting better because I want to be, maybe in your example, you say, I want to be the man that is able to take care of my family, right? I need to be physically strong and able so that in the event I can take care of them if necessary. I have the energy to be there for my kids. I have the energy to be the best husband to my wife, right? These are all things that will, I think, really, really push us and motivate us through any kind of tough physicalities that we have to go through. Okay, so that's the first step. Now, of course, the second step I would say is just to make sure that you have you build up some sort of a system. Implementing some sort of a system into the way you are going about all these actions that you need to take, so that you can kind of remove the need for motivation. Like the motivation is always there. It's a little trump card that you can pull out and say, hey, I have this motivation, great. It's a bonus, pushes me to do a bit extra today. Fantastic. But most of the time, especially once the initial excitement fades, the grind starts, right? The grind starts. This is like the emotional cycle of change. And so the grind starts, and then this is where the reality hits people that, oh man, this thing's actually tougher than I expected. This thing is probably going to take a bit longer than I expected. In fact, much longer than I expected. And I feel I'm doing all these things right. I'm not really getting the results. So you need to make sure you have a system in place that allows you to still get that shit done. And system wise, it can also be linked to environment. Like, how's your environment being created or curated to allow you to get your stuff done? So I think just from these two things already, that's probably the biggest first steps I can think of. Do you have anything else in mind? Mike?
I think it's always difficult because when you're looking at just mindset, right? We're not looking at actual practical application here, but we're looking
Yeah,
at the shifting of the mindset.
yeah,
For me, it's that, when you were younger, you go to the gym and you exercise crazy and everything because you want to get that summer body so that when you hit the beach,
yeah,
you're going to be like, look at me. Why, look at you.
yeah,
Got nothing on me. You have that, and then summer ends and it's like moving into autumn again. It's like, oh, okay, never mind. Just put it aside again, and so on and so on. Then when summer's approaching again, oh, okay, let's go work out. Let's get all this done,
yeah,
kind of thing. So you have the very short-term motivation, and the short-term motivation is to look good on the beach. But
yeah,
shifting that to long-term discipline, when you start to understand, is like this workouts that I'm doing, this eating healthily, this sleeping habits that I want to improve upon rather than sleeping 3, 4 hours a night. Let me look at getting the 8 hours in. All of
yeah.
these things, these are like insurance. I'm putting in insurance. So
Okay.
I'm not seeing the benefit right now, possibly. Anything, I've got joint pain, uh, this pain, that pain. There was this meme that I saw where the guy is like, oh, go and work out because you'll get stronger and you'll get this. And he's like, goes and work out, and then all he gets is like joint pain, this pain, that pain,
Or
because
the
he's over 40
expectations
already.
reality kind of meme, right?
Yeah. So you might be going through that right now, but what
Yeah,
happens is you're building up that capital. Just like in
yeah,
your insurance, you're putting in those premiums and you're building it up. But that day when you need to cash that in, like, as you say, maybe you need to protect your family. Maybe you need to just provide for your family. I don't know. Whatever it might be, maybe you decide now you've fallen in love with pickleball,
yeah,
or whatever it is. But now your body is adaptable to it because you've been training it over all of these years.
yeah.
You might also be more resilient to, I don't know, getting some form of disease or whatever. I don't know with regards to
You
that.
know,
Maybe your recovery from it might be better because you're more mobile, you can
yeah,
do certain things, um, that kind of stuff. All of this is like you're putting it in that piggy bank for that long-term success that you're going to get as you
yeah,
age and go into your autumn and winter seasons.
yeah,
All of that you're doing in now, you're going to get the benefit of that then. And I feel like getting that shift, that mindset is like coming back to the example that you gave earlier of your dad. Oftentimes we sit here and we look at it as like, okay, I need to work out now because these are like a bit of my golden years, so I need to look good. But that's not the ultimate goal that we're looking for here. What we're looking
yeah,
for is we need to ensure that we are strong enough and mobile enough that when we get to like your dad's age or even the 90-year-old who's still deadlifting things, we're able to do so, and we're able to actually get up, sit down, walk to the store if we want to walk to the store, play with the grandkids if you want to play with the grandkids,
yeah,
and start shifting the mindset from like, okay, I need to be strong today because I need to look cool, to, okay, I need to start building my strength in order to do this in my next stage of life. And that's
yeah.
the mindset shift that I've gone through,
Yeah.
where it's like, now I don't
I
lift crazy weights just because, it's my ego needs to be achieved. But
it's a it's a
yeah.
it's sorry, it's a different type of ego, right? Because ego is how we view ourselves at the end of the day. So it's not a bad thing to have ego, but it's how do you cultivate that ego, right? And your shift in the ego right now is to a different, bigger purpose ego. It's not about the self image of how do I look to other people, but it's about your worth and value and function as a person that you see is valuable, and what's your service function, right? That's like part of your values, your key core values for you. So I think for your case, this like that is a super big shift, a super big shift in ego that we need to we encourage for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
The idea of insurance is really interesting because I do have a real life, actually two real life cases where I can say, and they are my friends in the fitness industry as well. And it's very unfortunate that these things happen to them. But the reality is that if they were not fit and healthy, they would not have survived, or the chances of survival for what they went through would have dropped dramatically. So one of my friends was like competitive bodybuilder, really jacked guy, everything. And one day he, had a little bit of back pain. He went in for a regular scan after he didn't go away for about a month. And he found out after multiple scans and multiple follow-ups that it was actually sacral cancer. The chances of which are like infinitely small. It's like 1 in 5 million kind of thing. But he got it. And the problem with that is that because it was already metastasized into the bone, they actually had to literally remove his entire sacrum.
Oh,
Okay. And not only that, also he had like throughout that, they had to do that surgery and there was some complications, blah blah blah. He went through that whole process. And that surgery, apparently the surgery success rate was something to the tune of, I don't know, less than 10%.
well,
He even had to sign a waiver or something of that nature to write, to waive it off, right? Um, but right now he's actually back in the gym lifting. He has obviously he has like functional walking issues for sure. He will never walk the same way again. He probably will never like run the same way again. But knowing him also, he'll probably find a way. But he's been hobbling around, moving around with like the walking stick initially once he came out of the hospital. But now he's actually been cleared. The doctors were telling him like you probably never be able to walk properly the rest of your life. But now he's being cleared by doctors to say, hey, you know what? You can actually go overseas and go and travel, take holiday. Like now he's been cleared to actually sit on an airplane already because previously he couldn't. He had to
oh,
always lie down to ease the pressure on some of the nerves going through his spine. Because right now, literally when he showed me the scan, I was like, your entire pelvic region where the sacrum should be, which is now gone. Well,
yeah. All right. So we had a bit of a drop and we're back.
let me just walk it a few steps back. So for him, the key thing that the doctor said, or the biggest takeaway was that if he did not have that 20 kilos to lose, he probably wouldn't have survived because the body would not have had any buffer for
Mm.
survival, any chance for survival. So he literally lost 20 kilos when he was bedridden, which is very normal, right? Like muscle wasting, but he had built up so much muscle that he could afford to waste the muscle. So imagine if it's the same thing, right? Like, and literally that is a real life example of the analogy you gave about insurance. This insurance built up such a huge protection for him. The amount of muscle he built up such a huge protection for him that it allowed him to just kind of come back down to average baseline. Whereas for most people, they start off at average or even slightly below average, and then they are way, way, way below average. They might have struggled way worse than him, to even get out of bed and stuff. They might not even have survived, I mean, to be honest, because again, survival rate of that surgery was probably like really, really low. So that's like one of my friends. And my other friend, again, how fitness kind of like saved his life is he had brain cancer. So both of them had cancer, right?
Yeah.
The common theme in that sense. But the fitness itself really allowed him to be able to, I would say, recover better. Again, because so there really is no downside in that sense to really training up your fitness and just fortifying yourself as early as possible. The best time to do it was yesterday, but next best time is now, today. So I always hold that close to mind because like these two guys, like I know them for quite a while. And every time I chat with them or talk to them, it just reminds me of how like if that like how for us, especially all the people that I talk to, I see that don't have these issues, right? That don't bother to go and exercise or take care of themselves. I always feel it's such a waste. It's always knowing and being close enough to people like that, hearing their stories that really opens your eyes, you know,
Mm, true.
to how grateful we should be for the things that we can do and the body that we have. Yeah,
Yeah. So when we're looking at these kind of things, right, in this long-term fitness and that kind of thing, how
yeah.
important or what role does setting realistic expectations play in getting the right mindset?
Hmm. I think. realistic expectations come into play in terms of the rate of change, and the recognition of where your starting point is. I would say that's the extent to which you should apply this level of realistic expectations.
Mm.
But you should always allow yourself to aspire to greater things for sure. But if you're just starting out, be real about where you're starting out from, and then try to think about like what's the next step. So one rule I like to use for clients when we plan this out, especially for clients that feel like, okay, I've been sedentary, I've been so inactive for 20 years. Where do I begin? How do I begin? Kind of thing. We usually say, what's the goal that you want? Okay, what's the ultimate goal that you want? For some of them, it may be something as that sounds as crazy as I want to lose 25 kilos, I want to lose 30 kilos. Then we say, okay, cool. That's your ultimate goal for now. Let's take that and let's take the 25% rule. Let's just take 25% of that. Actually, I first heard it as half of half rule, which basically you take half of that and then you take another half of that, but essentially becomes 25%. Little quick math lesson there. But anyway, 25% rule. So let's say if you are wanting to lose 40 kilos, let me use 40 kilos. Instead of looking at 40 kilos, you can say, okay, cool, let me lose this first 10, right? You just take 25% of that. And then we work on that. Like that becomes your hard goal because it is going to be at that uncomfortable border of just out of your reach so that you can still strive towards it, but it's not impossible. It doesn't feel impossible, so of course the gap is not that far. So I think that's one very practical way to kind of shift the mindset in terms of scaling it down a little bit, when you talk about realistic expectations.
Mm.
Because the last thing you want to do is have realistic expectations that go too far into the other end of the conservative spectrum that you don't push enough. And when you don't push enough, you don't get any significant or tangible results. Like you don't feel that significantly better. You don't feel that much more energetic. Things like this. You don't notice your pants fitting just a little bit looser. It's it's not going to make you want to continue with it as well. So we have to really write that line quite tightly.
I think one of the shifts that I went through is that, and this is sort of in line with what you're saying, it's just using different wording really, is that I
Mm.
went, I was raised on the 8-week program, 12-week program, you know. You get onto these things, you do
Mm.
your big change, and then that's it. But I've come to realize that actually, when you start thinking of it in lifestyle terms rather than in diet terms or in program terms, but you start looking at it in
Yep.
lifestyle terms, the shortest period you can really start playing with is 1 year. And so, what do I mean by all this? It means that, you
Yeah.
know, oftentimes we'll say, okay, I need to, let's use that example, 10 kilos, right?
Yep.
So, I need to lose 10 kilos. All right. Now I go and either I starve myself or I work out like crazy to achieve that 10 kilos. Then what happens is either I don't achieve it, or two, I achieve it and then I'm like, yeah, check mark. All right. 2 months later after that, 5 kilos back on. 6 months later after that, 10 kilos have come back already. So there's been no noticeable shift in my lifestyle to accommodate that. But I just did it to achieve it and then I moved on. Right. So then you start looking at it as like, okay, I come 2025. All right. I did that. Come to the end of 2025, boom, back to where I am. Okay, let's start 2026. Okay, 2026, I'll try lose this 10 kilos. Boom, and let's go through the same process again. And so you have this, and I think this is probably falling back to that short term uh, uh, motivation and stuff that we're using, but shifting that from that to saying, okay, what I want to do is I want to cultivate the mindset that I want to be 10 kilograms lighter and that's what I'm going to focus on in 2026. So I take the full 2026 to implement, okay, so if I want to be 10 kilograms lighter, what should my diet look like? Not what diet should I do now, but what
Yeah.
should my diet look like today, tomorrow, next year, so on and so on, and start
Yeah.
cultivating that. All right. So I've got my diet now sorted out. Okay, let's look at either the latter of 2025 or let's move into 2026. what kind of exercise would benefit me now that I've got into my getting to my goal weight or all these kind of things. Then, all right, let's start implementing that now. That's my focus now for 2026. And when you start taking these shifts, then 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you're actually where you want to be already. Rather than
Yeah.
every year having the same conversation when January comes along. Saying, okay, this is going to be the year. But actually, when you say this is
Yeah.
going to be the year, you're saying this is going to be my January, February, where I'm going to achieve all my goals. And then
Yeah.
magically, I'm just going to live them out for the rest of my life. Rather than taking that long term view and saying, okay, let's focus on this aspect for this year and get this right. When I've got this right, let's move on to the next one for the next year and focus on that, and so on and
Yeah.
so on. I find it's like that has worked quite well with me, rather than going on the quick fix programs each time.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about setting realistic expectations, to me that is setting realistic expectations. It's like I love the half and half, because we have this big thing we want to achieve, and oftentimes a lot of us we overly exaggerate the things we want to achieve
Yeah.
when the realistic the realistic part of it is really we can get half and half of that.
Yeah.
And so bringing that down and focusing on a smaller aspect for a longer period of time, I feel you solidify that more into your lifestyle than just going through it to achieve something quickly.
Yeah. It's really comes down to when you talk about it, it comes down to that quote that I go back to. Most people overestimate how much they can accomplish in a day, right?
Hmm,
Or in a week, but they underestimate how much they can accomplish in a year.
that's right.
So it's one of those things where we think we have to get all this shit done within the week or within the day itself. And I face this in a lot of other areas of my life, especially my work. I think shit, I need to get this thing up, I need to get that thing, I need to set the system right, I need whatever, right, for work. I'm sure you're the same way in the sense
Yeah.
of when we are running our own business and stuff, it can move in that direction quite easily. But we forget that, hey, actually if I just get this one key thing today that moves the needle forward, I just have to repeat that the next day and the next day and next day. And then within the week, suddenly I've accomplished so much more than I thought I would. Rather than trying to force ourselves to do so much in one day that we either get burnt out or we don't accomplish it and we end up dealing with the mental aftermath of that. Then that drags it out a lot longer, makes you less productive. So that's the burnout aspect of things, right? Yeah. I do think, all that being said, I do think when you talk about, being influenced by 8-week programs or like I don't know 12-week programs, things like that. I do think those, if used correctly, or if you go into it with the right mindset, can be very powerful. Because sometimes just having like that initial quick start can be a great source of motivation, but you have to go into it and at the start also have the right mindset and framing in mind. Usually, I was going to say like you have have the right coaching, but you don't necessarily need the right coaching. If you are one of those go-getters kind, you might do like a 4-week challenge to yourself. But if you plan out correctly, you go in with the right mindset. Say, okay, what's the purpose of this? I'm not just achieving the change to achieve the change, right? I'm achieving the change because this is supposed to be a lasting thing. So I do think they have their benefit. And I'm saying all this because I'm also working on a 28-day kind of like shorter term program
Hmm.
uh, to allow people to have a little bit of an entry to coaching, in that sense, to kickstart them into the process and hopefully teach them as much as they can, and from there, then obviously they can say, hey, do they want to carry on with, having a coach, or have they found a good pacing for themselves to kind of carry on their own? So I do think sometimes these kickstarts can be done well. But if they're marketed as this is going to be your fix all solution, this is going to be like, the quick transformation, blah, 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 this kind of stuff, then you're probably going to go into it with the wrong mindset. Yeah.
I'll tell you the issue that I take with them, and
Mm.
I'm not discounting the fact that, as you say, they do play a part and they can be very beneficial for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you do get quite a substantial amount of people too that once you jump into that program, because oftentimes, let's be real, these kind of programs, they can be a bit restrictive, because you have to change your eating
Mm.
habits. If you want to lose 10 kilos in 12 weeks, so to speak.
Oh yeah, for
There's going to
sure.
be a big change in your eating habits. There's going to be a big change in your activity level and all these kind of things.
Yeah,
And oftentimes, what will happen is that when you getting, say, 10 days left of that challenge, the program, people start looking and counting it off in the calendar. Okay, 10 days
yeah,
left, 9 days left. I only need to do
yeah,
this 8 days, seven. And by the time it finishes, it's, oh, okay, McDonald's, here I come, and then off
yeah,
they go. So I can finally eat. I'm no longer on this program. So you do get this kind of mindset that comes into the people when we focusing on these kind of programs. Now,
yeah.
is that everybody? Of course not. There are many, many people that these programs definitely will play a big part for. But there are, as I say, there's these other side of people as well. And they start counting down those days. And for these kind of people, for me, is I feel as like if you look at the longer term and rather take that half and half approach and
Mm.
put it over, say, a year, you're probably going to see more success going forward practicing that. This is just, how shall we say, accepting that there's different types of people with different types of motivation, different ways of integration when you look at integrating these kind of things into their life.
Mm.
You, not one particular thing is going to work for everybody, if we can put it that way. And these are just
100%.
offering the alternatives for those people that it does not necessarily work for.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's definitely right. But that also comes into or that's really more of the perspective again of I mean we are probably in agreement with this, which is the fact that going into it with the wrong mindset is the issue.
Yeah.
So if you're going into a solution thinking that this is the end be all end all solution for you, it's going to get you to this point, and from this point you can just go back to what you were doing before. No program is going to work. No, you can try the 20, you would try something like the 25% rule, and that's not going to work for you because it's going to be too slow. You find, oh, I'm not getting where I'm going. You can try a program like the challenge, but like Mike said, you're going to be ticking off the boxes to the end of the challenge because you're not looking at it from the perspective of how can I make this sustainable? What is the underlying good habits I'm trying to cultivate here? So even with like stuff like the program that I'm creating at the moment, the 28-day one, that one's more focused still on habits and teaching an idea and teaching the principles rather than saying you have to force yourself to do it this way. But it's just in a very dedicated sprint because sometimes people just need a kickstart, right? But the mindset is still the key thing here. The mindset is still this is not this is the beginning of the rest of your life kind of thing. It's not the this is for 4 weeks and then after that you go back to what you're used to doing.
Hmm.
Because if that's your approach, no program will help you. 100%.
All right. So in
Awesome.
closing, let's go through a bit of like quick fire shots here.
Yes, let's do it.
Um, what are some effective techniques for managing stress with regards to this kind of thing? Like emotional eating, all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. Mm.
For managing stress, I know this is not the answer people want to hear, but I think it's probably the most effective one. And if you can get it done, if you can get over the initial discomfort of doing it, it really pays off very well. And that's being able to sit with the uncomfortable feelings that you are feeling and identify them and talk yourself through them. So this essentially is emotional regulation. Why do people seek coping mechanisms when they feel stressed? Because they're trying to distract and avoid themselves from feeling the negative emotions that they're currently feeling. So I do think when you're feeling stressed, it's worthwhile to practice. Hey, okay, I'm feeling really stressed right now. Like ask yourself, I'm feeling really stressed right now. What do I feel? And you can go online, you can Google this thing called the emotional wheel or emotions wheel. Basically, it's a graphic that will allow you to help decipher and get down to what you're actually feeling. So it's usually a wheel that has three sections to it. From the middle, one small circle, then a bigger circle, then another bigger circle around it, right at the end. And the small circle starts off with very generic feelings, like feeling sad, happy, angry, whatever. And then you identify the general feeling you're feeling. They go to the next layer and they will have further divisions down. And then from there, it will even have even further divisions down. So I might be feeling very angry, but what's the secondary kind of anger I'm feeling? Oh, actually, I'm feeling frustration. Okay, why am I feeling frustration? Because I'm feeling, a specific disappointment or something. Because when you can identify it, right, you can actually start to see the emotions for what they are. The reason why these things are uncomfortable and we immediately uh try to distract ourselves from them, we don't actually see them for what they are. So they still live in our head as this monster. And that's, I always talk about the horror story stuff, right? Like, why do the best horror shows and horror movies work? Because they don't show you the monster. They let your imagination do everything. But the moment they start showing you the monster, after that it just becomes less scary. First time it's scary, and after that, subsequent times you just look at it in the light, you're like, hey, it kind of looks ridiculous. So I think if you're talking about stress management, the first thing I would always suggest is, can you sit with these emotions and ask yourself, what are you actually stressed about? What are you actually feeling? If you can do that, you're less likely to resort to coping with it through very unhealthy means. Then the second part to that would just be, have a substitute action that you can then follow up with. So instead of reaching for, I don't know, a chocolate bar to feel better, right? You might drink Coke Zero, let's say a closer substitute, something sweet, or you might just get up. It's not even consumptive at all. Just get up, stretch, go and walk around, clear your head, change your environment. So there's all these kind of stuff that you can think of. But I think at its core, the most important thing is addressing what you're feeling.
Okay. What
Yeah.
about how can we stay motivated when progress seems slow or invisible?
This one I would say shift your perspective from looking at one-dimensional progress metrics to more holistic progress metrics. Meaning, and I say that as a very big descriptor because most of the time I deal with people that are fitness related or have weight loss goals. So a lot of them focus only on the scale. Even if their pants are getting looser, even if they are feeling much more energetic, even if they're feeling lighter and stronger, right? All these benefits are happening, but because of certain, issues with the weight loss process, sometimes the weight itself will lag a little bit, right? It might not go down, but you're making these changes are all happening to your body. It happens. It happens very often, in fact. And if we don't recognize that, we only look at the weight, we will keep being under the illusion that we're not making progress. So you want to say, okay, I'm not making progress in this specific metric, but let me look at the other metrics. Is my waist going down? Is my pants getting a bit looser? Oh, it really is actually. If I'm looking in the mirror, oh man, what's that new lines I see on my abdominals, right? Oh wow, what's this new vein I see on my biceps? It's always pretty cool. Celebrate all these little wins because if you can start to recognize all these things, you realize that you're making progress. And at the end of the day, we do need to see some progress, right? Because we want
Mm.
to know that the efforts we put in are yielding some results. But we just need to be more mindful about where are we looking for the progress. Okay, there's no one key metric that means, oh, this, if you push forward in this, it means that you're making progress only. Yeah.
Okay. All right, the next question we got is how do we balance commitment to fitness with other life responsibilities?
How do we balance this? I would honestly say do what you can to fit your exercise and your nutritional practices into your current schedule. There is a compromise for sure between how much you need to change of your current lifestyle and how much you need to accommodate the fitness and all. But I think it's a very individual thing for everybody, because it depends on your current schedule, your current phase of life. How do you want to approach it? For some people, they are like, you know what, I'm moving to this next few like 3 to 4 months where I can really make a much bigger change. And so they'll make more changes. They'll be able to organize up and pre-plan everything. But I still have clients also that are currently in the phase of their life where their career is taking off and they have, to fly here and there and stuff like that. We have to fit the fitness plans around that. But it still goes back to the main thing that we talked about right at the beginning, which is all or something, not all or nothing.
Mm.
So as long as you're able to fit in something, you'll be fine. So if you talk about the fitness aspect of things, maybe you might create a 30-minute workout plan, but if you can't do the full 30 minutes, do 10 minutes of it, do 5 minutes of it. I have some clients that do like literally every day, they just do one set of the exercise in the toughest of times. When all the kids are sick, they have to take care of the family, whatever it is. I tell them, just do one set. That's all I need for you to do, one set and take it off. Because that keeps you going, and that keeps the habit there. So that's really how you want to balance things. Like do the bare minimum. Even if you're just going for like 5 minute walk, even if it's just getting up from your desk and doing 10 squats for that day, if that's all you can give, then you gave 100% already, right? So that's all you need. Yeah. Because that's going to keep you moving forward.
But I think on this one also you need to be honest with yourself, right? Because we can all say
Hmm.
we don't have the time.
Oh, yeah.
So I've come to the realization once before is where people keep saying don't have time, don't have time. You actually asked, can I see your diary? And then you start seeing what are you actually scheduling your time for? What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Okay, how long does that take you? Oh, it takes me an hour. All right, what else are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? Okay, that takes me another hour. All right, so what are you doing for the other, other 6 hours? Oh, so we also need to be realistic with ourselves, and when we work out that time period that we're doing, is like, what are you blocking your time out for, and where are you setting that time aside? Are you being productive? And when I say being productive, I also mean like if sitting down and helping you to relax is watching a K drama or something like that, that's also productive. Put that into your time. It's
100%.
not a
Yeah.
case of like now we're saying don't go and watch any TV. You must be out there working out, or you must be. We're not saying that at all. But we're
Yeah.
saying is be realistic with your schedule and actually see where are you losing time? What are you doing that you're wasting time in a way? Are you wasting time? Are you leaking time somewhere?
Yeah.
And if so, try plug that first before really starting to see if you must do bare minimum with your workouts. At least that's from my perspective.
Yeah.
All
Can
right.
I add one thing to
Yeah.
that? Yeah. I think the time aspect, while it's important, it's also the more so than the time that's limited, it's also the attention that we have that's kind of limited as well. So even though sometimes we can look through a person's schedule and we might see like, hey, they have a lot of these gaps here, but the way their attention is distributed throughout the day is just not, it doesn't work well, for them. So I do think sometimes looking at where is your attention being pulled, right? Where are you wasting attention or leaking attention? And this could be easily the times where in between you're trying to do work, but you're also unfocused and you're like, every 5 to 10 minutes you're just looking through Reddit or scrolling through Instagram, picking up your phone, checking messages, things like this.
Mm.
So it's a different era right now where everything is battling for your attention, right? All the different apps, all the notifications. That's why they're always asking you allow this app to send you notifications, stuff like that. I would say be like focus on what's taking your attention away, and then try to tighten and clean that up a little bit more as well. Do in the same way that you would do for looking through your schedule and say, okay, I have all these actual gaps of time. Because sometimes you might find you have all these gaps of time, but you just don't have the energy to go and do anything. And so
Mm.
the reason why most people don't have that energy is just because you don't have the attention left. You spent it all on something else, or you wasted it all on something else.
Mm.
Yeah.
There was a book that's fair enough. The point that you're bringing up.
Mm.
There was a book that I was reading that was saying is like in modern times, the difference between today and previous is how we measure the activity level of the person. And so they broke it down to is every person has X amount of decision capacity that they can make per day.
Yeah.
And once they've expended that, they pretty much shut off. Like the mental capacity that they have, they don't really have anymore.
Yeah.
And this varies for every person or from person to person, not every person.
Yeah.
But from person to person, the amount of decisions that can be made varies. So it's a fair point that you brought up is like if you see the gaps in the schedule, you also need to see what is in the schedule. Like, is it very intensive? Do I need to make 5 decisions in that one meeting of 30 minutes? If I do, then obviously that might be a lot more mental taxing than, say, having a meeting where I only need to make one decision or one where I just needed to attend. I didn't need to make any decisions. These kind of things all play a part in that. But I think when the person goes and reviews their own schedule, they should also be taking that into account. Like, I know that this meeting was very heavy, so I did need that time to recover. So I went for some, what's the thing that my wife loves to go for? Chendol. So she needs that to go and recharge before she can take on another one and go on for something else and
Yeah.
so on. So you know yourself, but my point coming across here is just that you need to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like when you're reviewing your schedule, be honest with yourself and don't say like, "Oh, I don't have the time, so I'm only going to do this one set. I'm going to do the bare minimum in my workouts."
Yeah.
If you really don't, and you are finding yourself like Twain was saying, if you've got sick kids and all these kind of things, I, as a parent, I can fully understand that. If you even make that one set per exercise, hats off to you already, because that is super energy sapping, having
Yeah.
sick kids. Yeah. So I think final one question before we wrap up here is, what are
Yes.
your thoughts on using journaling to monitor mindset and progress?
I think journaling is useful, but I think it's also a rabbit hole that a lot of people can go down, where you end up, overwhelmed by all the suggestions of how to journal. I would say the best way to journal is to just literally take a piece of paper and then write out what you think or what you feel, um, especially in the moment. So I would honestly just say, just like, if you want to use journaling, keep it really simple. Just kind of write down how you feel. I mean, obviously it's a very private thing for you, right? So you write down, right now in this moment, I'm feeling like this because whatever, and then you just start from there. Because after that, once you get over the initial harm of starting it out, you probably will start writing a bit more. As with anything, it's about the consistency as well. So if you keep it super low stakes at the beginning, where it's just easy to do, there's no expectations, you'll find your rhythm with it. And then after you get the habit of just actually journaling down, you can start to go explore things like, oh, journal prompts, or maybe a better structure to the way you're structuring out your journaling attempts. So I think it's one of those things where, and I speak about this from experience as well, just because I've tried to do journaling previously, and the biggest mistakes I made was I would go and search, oh, best way to journal, and then I would watch multiple different videos, and they will all tell you slightly different things, right? They tell one video will tell you, oh, the best way to do it is first thing in the morning. Here's a 5 question prompt for you. Use this, and then as you go through it, this is what you want to do and how you plan on. Oh man, it just goes down too much of a rabbit hole. So if you're like me and maybe this particular thing is not your natural field of expertise, it's sometimes better to just get started first, get your feet wet, and then from there you'll be able to search for more specific things to what you want. So just like example for nutrition for fitness, we get people to just like start eating more meat first, more proteins, eat a bit more vegetables first. So start from there. If you can very consistently do that every meal, then we can start talking about tracking, we can start talking about all these other stuff.
Mm.
I mean, for some people, they can start straight with tracking, don't get me wrong, but you know, I say majority of people need to just get started in the first place. There's just too much information nowadays. So too much decision fatigue, right? Like you said.
I find like with journaling, one of the benefits you do get from it, and the beauty of it is that, last time we needed to have our diary to write in, or whatever
Mm.
place there was that you read. Now we have so many different apps and things that you can use, where you can punch in a few things here, and it pops out and fantastic report and all that at the end of the month. But it also gives you the opportunity now. You can just record yourself and speak into your phone, and then it saves it for you. Now, what do I like about journaling in a sense is that if you go in it for the long term, right, and you go through the periods, because we all go through it, where it's like, oh, I'm not feeling it right now. I don't really
Mm.
want to do this anymore. If you're doing the journaling, you can go back and you can go through these things, and you can start looking at them and seeing it's like, oh, wow, listen to the language that I was using a year ago compared to the language that I'm using today. I can already see that there's a shift in my priorities and my mindset and the way that I'm going about things. Oh, okay. Even if I recorded the video, wow, look how chubby my cheeks were in that video compared to how I look in this video. Wow, okay, this is working. There's that motivation
Yeah.
again that you can get from that, and it can help you to move forward. So one of the things that I like to use for myself is that keep my albums, all my family albums, access on my phone. And so whenever I'm like a bit down in the dumps or this kind of things, like, oh, I'm not sure I want to go work out today, then you jump in and
Yeah.
you go and look at all your family photos. And you see is like either you see, oh, yo, look at the waist in this photo, or the other things you see is like, wow, look at the amount of fun that I have with my kids here.
Oh yeah,
Am I in
yeah,
this journey for myself or am I in this journey for my family? When you start
yeah,
looking, it helps you to give you that perspective going forward, and then you helps you to overcome a lot of the obstacles that you usually end up with.
yeah.
Again, speaking from my perspective.
I mean
And
that's powerful, man. I think that's fantastic. That's like a super super good way to do it. You know, harness the power of nostalgia and love. But
yeah,
that's really it, right? Like end of the day, that's what life is about for the most part. Like for most of us, that's what we live for, I think.
yeah, all about the experiences per
About the
se.
experiences,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool.
All right. I think we'll call it there.
Well over the
Do
time
you have
as
anything
well.
else you wanted to just add before we?
Nah, nah. I mean, there's obviously plenty of stuff we could go down in terms of mindset even further, but I think we talked about most of it so far. If there's good reception to this, maybe we could do another one. We can talk about specific things if people have questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let's say that's all for today's episode of 40 Plus Fit.
Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you. Yeah. Thank you for actually sitting through with us. I think for well, quite a long episode, this one. But
Yeah.
remember, long-term success or long-term fitness isn't just about physical strength. It's about mental resilience, self-belief, and a commitment to growth. So if you found this episode empowering, please do subscribe and leave us a review. You can find all the resources and links that we have on our website at 40plusfit.com. And you can also watch us on YouTube. Well, you can listen to us on YouTube at the moment. We haven't actually put the video parts, but
For
we
the
do have
videos.
shorts. Huh? We've now delved into shorts on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
So where we drop a quick 1 minute wisdom on you so
With the
that
bits.
it's daily, Monday to Friday. So you can
Okay, cool.
also pop in for that on our YouTube channel. Other than that, stay positive, stay focused, and we'll see you in the next episode of 40 Plus Fit. Keep building that mental strength.
Awesome. And see you guys.